Thank you for tuning in for another chapter of the novel Wrecked, written by James Cousineau. Chapter 3, Finger Off of the Trigger. Matt and Kathy walked through the door at home, and they're greeted by Matt's parents. Michelle gives Matt a big hug and just holds him tight. Not a word is spoken between them. This has to be one of the only times in his life when his mother was at a loss for words. As they separated, Matt saw Paul standing in the kitchen doorway. Beyond Paul, Matt focuses on the old playhouse in the backyard through the kitchen window. He remembers the weekend spent building it, with Noah trying to help, but making more of a mess than really helping. That would be expected, though, as Noah was only 4 years old at the time. A tear runs down his face as he reminisces. Paul's voice breaks him from his thoughts. "Honey, maybe we should leave these two and get home." Paul was sure that given the distance and ongoing rift he and Matt have gone through, he was not really wanted here. It has been a few days of memories and taking stock of life for Paul as well. He's been beating himself up, trying to figure out how he allowed his son to grow so angry with him, and how they've pushed each other away. He has never said it out loud, but he spends many sleepless nights when Matt is overseas and on missions, worrying about his son. He was a tough father as Matt was growing up, but thought that's how he needed to be as a father. He was never physical with Matt, so for as long as he could remember, he can't understand the anger and attitude he got from him. Paul had always envisioned being hard on Matt so he would be strong and assertive when he took over the multinational corporation Paul had built after leaving the CIA. After the past decade, he has softened and realized that his intentions may have been well-meaning, but they've cost him his relationship, and he's always wanted that with his son. Now, he's not sure how to get it back. He would give up the multi-billion-dollar international security and defense business he has built, if it would heal the relationship he has with Matt. The death of Noah has hit Paul very hard. Among other things he's going through, he's feeling an urgency to reconnect with his son. Paul thought that he was hearing things when it was Matt who spoke up. "Thank you, Dad, for everything. I know you got me back here so quickly." Paul waited for the cold and hurtful words to follow, but they did not. Instead, he heard Matt clear his throat and say, "This is not going to fix things, and it will not make me forget the past. I've been thinking about the memories of Noah, and during that, I started to remember memories of us when I was small, when we were close. It made me understand that I may have missed a lot when you started traveling for business all the time. When I started to feel that the company took over being the most important thing in your life, that used to be me and Mom. I let that anger build for so many years, and that became the wedge between us. On the flight home, I wondered if Noah was holding that same resentment towards me and my commitment to our country. I was away from him, and although I am retiring from that life, it's just too fucking late. I don't know if we can repair our relationship, but I hope that we can at least have one, no matter what that may take shape as." Paul now has a tear in his eye, which is something Matt had never seen in his life. Paul just walks towards his son, and Matt reaches out a hand. Paul reaches out and clasps onto Matt's hand and pulls him in for a hug. Matt has not had a hug from his father since he was about 7 years old, and as strange as it was also comforting in a way that he could not describe. Matt finally pulled away and looked at his father. "Okay, enough of that. I don't like you that much yet." They both laughed, knowing Matt was trying to lighten the mood a bit, as they were both in pain. Matt turned back to Kathy and asked her when the last time she had something to eat. "I'm not sure. I believe it was breakfast before." Her voice trailed off. Michelle tells Matt that they have not really been thinking about food since this happened. Paul tells Matt, "We could stay if you would like, and we can order something on that dish skip thing on your mother's phone." "That's skip the dishes, Dad, and that sounds fine," he responded. Not the most enduring invitation, but Paul will gladly take it. I'm not really hungry, so you guys just order what you want, Kathy says. Matt responds to her. I know you're not feeling hungry right now, but you need to try to get something in your stomach, babe. I know, but I think I'll lay down for a bit. Come get me when it arrives and I'll try, Kathy states as she turns and heads toward the stairs leading to the second floor and into the master bedroom. Matt hears the door of the bedroom close. He feels guilty for not following her, but he's still trying to figure out what to say to Kathy when he doesn't even know what to tell himself about the recent happenings. Kathy wakes and looks at the clock. She sees it's 11:15 in the morning. She's usually up getting Noah up and ready for school. Since he died, she's not felt the need or interest to get out of bed. She notices that Matt's side of the bed is unmoved. He has not slept in the bed since he returned home 4 days ago. He's been spending all of his time in the basement where he has an office set up. He's been down there, and when Kathy goes to try to get him to come to bed or eat meals, he is reluctant to leave the dark basement. He sits there in the dark room, only lit by the computer screen on the wall, where he spends his time watching old family videos and drinking scotch. Kathy is growing worried and angry at the same time. She needs him and his support. She's been trying to plan the funeral for Noah and cannot get Matt to make any decisions at all. She wonders if he is blaming her for Noah's death, and that's why he doesn't want to be near her for that reason. Matt sits in his oversized chair looking at the screen in front of him, playing a video of Noah's second-to-last baseball game. He had taken Kathy's phone to transfer the footage, as she always records the games for him when he was away. He noticed the last game of the season, Noah had spent most of the time on the bench, so he just kept watching this one for the past several hours. He has barely gotten any sleep since he finished the mission and got the news of Noah's murder. He sits there, drowning in a combination of pain, guilt, and scotch. He's looking disheveled and rough, given that he's not even showered since he arrived home, and he is still wearing the same clothes he had on when he departed Kandahar. He feels the cold metal touching his lips and glances his look above the computer monitor at the American flag all folded and framed, which he brought home from his last mission. The flickering of the computer screen reflects in his bloodshot eyes. They are red and raw, as he did not even know it was possible for a person to cry so many tears that it actually hurts. What the fuck are you doing, you asshole? Do you think that I can do this without you? Kathy was screaming as she came into the office. Matt was shocked and froze. He did not lower the gun from his mouth. Given his shock and surprise after her coming in and screaming, it was a good thing he is used to not reacting to outside distractions when he's focused on a task. I'm not sure you could call this a task, though. Besides, he still had the safety engaged. He was sitting there in the dim room with his Beretta 9mm barrel stuck in his mouth, with his lips sealed around it. He cannot stop thinking that Noah is gone and Kathy is suffering because he was not there. He cannot control the feelings, and this only drives him into a further depression. Matt finally lowers the gun and places it on the desk in front of him. He feels an overwhelming sense of shame and cannot bring himself to look at his distraught wife crying at his side. She steps in between Matt and the desk and then sits down on his lap and wraps her arms around his neck. Matt can only repeat over and over, "I am sorry. I am sorry. I'm sorry. I should have been home. I'm so sorry." The tears start rolling down his cheeks again, and Kathy holds him tighter with her head now on his shoulder. "It's not your fault. You could not have known that this would happen, and neither could I. I keep thinking that I should have made him wait for me instead of allowing the kids to go ahead. I'm hurting too, but if we're going to get through this, we need to do it together. I just cannot do it without you." With that, Kathy stopped talking, and they just held each other, crying and hearing the sound of Noah on the computer speakers in the background, mixed with the music playing on the little stereo behind Matt's chair. The lyrics of "Something to Remind You" by Stained did not go unnoticed to her. She reaches behind Matt and hits the stereo's power button. "No more of this, honey," she tells Matt. "Yeah, I guess the scotch and music is not doing my mind any good right now," is Matt's reply. Kathy finally breaks their embrace and looks at Matt. Do you think you can make it to the shower now? I'm sure the neighbors can smell you. He finally looks Kathy in the eyes. He had not been able to do so since they got off the plane. I don't know how we're going to get through this, but I promise that I'll stay with you. I don't know what I was thinking. I just kept thinking that if I was not away. Matt is stopped by Kathy. We can't keep thinking this way. If we're going to make it, honey, I'm hurting and confused as to why this has happened, but we need to get the arrangements done and figure it out one step at a time. Just as they get out of the chair, the doorbell rings from upstairs. They make their way up, and Matt says that he's going to go take a shower if she can answer the door. As they're now at the top of the stairs and entering the living room, Kathy stops and turns to Matt as he was walking behind her. She gives him a kiss and tells him that he should go have a shower, or whoever's at the door won't recognize him and think she's cheating on him. They both laugh a little. The doorbell rings once again, and Kathy yells, "Hold on, I'm coming already," as Matt makes his way upstairs to the bedroom to fetch some clothes before heading to the shower. They both feel some sense of release and relief after the other saying that they do not blame each other. They each still feel some guilt, but this seems to have made everything a little more bearable. As Kathy answered the door, it was Detective Stuart McQuaid and another detective she had not met at the scene. Stuart speaks first. "Good day, Kathy. I'm sorry for just showing up, but I've been trying to call you and Matt since yesterday." "It's okay, Detective. We've had a lot going on, and we have not been returning calls as of yet," Kathy replies. Detective McQuaid continues. "I'd like to introduce you to Sergeant Bogart. She leads the Victims Services Division and is here for anything you need." Kathy and Sergeant Bogart shake hands. "May we come in?" the sergeant asks. "Oh, of course. I'm sorry." Kathy invites them in and says, "Please have a seat in the living room. I'll be just a moment as I'll go and put some coffee on. I don't know about you both, but I'm in need of a strong caffeine fix, and that'll give Matt time to finish the shower and join us." "We never say no to coffee that's not made at the station," Sergeant Bogart responds with a warm smile. After putting on the coffee, Kathy returns and informs him she's going to run upstairs and change out of her pajamas while she lets Matt know that they are here. Stuart takes a seat on the couch, feeling the sun behind him shining through the front windows. Sergeant Bogart walks around the living room, pausing to look at various framed photos on the walls and on the fireplace mantel. Photos of Noah in school and various baseball photos, along with some professional-looking photographs of Kathy, Matt, and Noah together. As she picks up one of the framed pictures, she holds it out towards Stuart. They look like such a happy family. To imagine that in a moment's notice this could happen to any of our children. I can't even imagine, she finishes saying, and places the photo back on the mantel as she hears footsteps coming down the stairs. She turns from the fireplace and observes Kathy and Matt coming down the stairs into the living room. That photo was taken last Christmas Eve when Matt decided that he was going to retire after this last assignment. Noah was so excited, he seemed like he had a plan that we could do as a family. Every 5 minutes it was something new. He would not stop talking about it until midnight when we finally convinced him he needed to sleep or Santa wouldn't be able to stop at our house since he was still awake. Matt grinned, but he was conflicted about how the memory made him smile, but at the same time, the guilt again of not retiring earlier. "I'll bring the coffee and we can talk, as I'm sure that you are very busy," Matt says to the detective and sergeant. He goes to the kitchen and returns with a pot of coffee on a tray with sugar bowl, some cream, and 4 mugs. Matt sets the tray down on the glass coffee table and pours coffee into each of the cups. Each one of them takes time to add some sugar and cream, the exception of Stuart, who likes his coffee without. "Matt, I'm Sergeant Bogart, but you guys can call me D. We've come here to inform you that although we don't have any breaking news in the investigation, we do have some updates all the same. We also wanted to inform you in person that Noah's body has been released by the coroner. I know that you've been in touch with Riverside for the services and burial. They'll be transporting him to their location later today. I wanted to ask from the moment I opened the door, and at the same time I was afraid to ask, or maybe just not knowing if I was ready to hear any news you may have and be here to deliver, Kathy said, with a nervous squeak to her voice. Matt reached out to take Kathy's hand in his to comfort her as they both looked across to the other couch in front of them where Stuart and Dee were sitting. As we continue the investigation into the occupants of each vehicle, it appears the punks we have in custody were not the ones who fired the shots which struck Noah. We're not sure how much longer the prosecutor is going to hold them, but I assume it will be tough for any of them to get bail if the prosecutor proceeds with the charges of possessing illegal firearms, reckless disregard for life in discharging the firearms, use of a firearm with the intent to cause bodily injury, and whatever other charges we can find, as I'm confident she will. In the meantime, 3 of the teens are being held on minor outstanding warrants, and the driver is still in hospital where he should remain for at least another week, Stuart finished and waited for a response. Matt takes a sip of his coffee and leans forward in his seat, still holding onto Kathy's hand as he sets his coffee on the table. Are any of these little bastards talking? Have they identified who was in the other vehicle? Have they shown any concern for what they contributed to? Stuart sets his cup on the table as well. He likes to move his hand around as he talks, as if he's giving some type of political speech. Stuart starts, "Listen, Matt, I know it's frustrating, but let me reassure you that even though these little pricks are not talking, we are confident that we know who was in the other vehicle. We've pulled every second of video in that area, both from traffic cameras as well as security cameras from homes and businesses. We're looking for them, and nobody is going to rest until we locate and bring them in." Dee speaks up at this point. They are gang members, and this means they're not willing to talk with us. They are claiming that they were only firing in self-defense. What we understand is the 2 crews crossed each other inside of the bodega on 6th Avenue. That's the turf claimed by the Mixed Nations gang, but contested by the Black Knights. An argument started inside the bodega, and the Mixed Nation members backed down and left in their car. The Black Knights were not ready to let it go and caught up with them in their vehicle and started shooting at the Mixed Nations members. From there, we know that they continued shooting at each other as they sped past the boys, and several stray shots hit Noah. From the video footage that Stuart touched on, with forensics and the gun located in the car, it all lines up. The small amount of information that they gave us before asking for lawyers. You need to let me in the room with them. I have not made it this far in my career without knowing how to make people talk and give up the answers, Matt says with a combination of anger and sincerity to his statement. Please, trust us, Matt. We know that you're suffering, but rest assured that we will find them and will get justice for Noah. We cannot have you taking matters into your own hands, no matter how connected you are. Just please let us do our job. Let us do that for you." Stuart implored Matt as he knew of Matt's career and from talk of the other soldiers how badass Matt could be on missions. He did not want vigilante justice to take over this investigation. "I promise that I'll give you time to do your job, but believe me, if I don't see results, I'll have to start seeking answers myself. That's not something I want to do, but should it come to that, you might as well stop your search. If I have to start finding them myself, you never will." Matt was firm in his statement, while both Stuart and Dee had no doubt that not only had he meant it, but that he would allow them some time, but follow through in making those little fuckers disappear after he gets the answers he wants. With that, Dee placed her coffee cup back on the tray and stood up, followed by Stuart. "Just please don't do anything that can cause reasons for these guys to get off in court. We want them to get there, and we want them to face the justice system. As Stuart finished speaking, Dee once again addressed Kathy. Please ensure he doesn't do anything that could complicate the investigation. I'll follow up with you both tomorrow after you've spoken to Riverside about the funeral arrangements. As Stuart and Dee get back into Dee's unmarked car, they look at each other. Do you think we have something to be concerned about with what Matt said in there? Dee asks Stuart. Stuart shakes his head and tells Dee, if even a fraction of what I've heard about Matt is true, he is very disciplined, so I think we have some time. With that said, though, I also think that if we do not get these fuckers soon enough, that he will take matters into his own hands. If he does that, I would not want to be any of these punks, no matter how many bangers are with them and what weapons they may have with them. I've heard stories that would make Rambo seem like a kitty cat, not to mention the money and resources that he can draw upon from his father's company. They both gave each other a concerned and worried look as Dee started the car and they pulled away from the curb. The end of Chapter 3.